Alright, now that we have everything hooked up to the planner, our display and ISO connections in place, we are now ready to set up the modules and configure them. So first thing, you need to start the display. It's going to go through its boot up sequence like normal. After that boot up sequence is done, then the master module will then load its software into the display, which takes a couple minutes. So just be patient with it. You'll see the display, the icon come up, and then once it's loaded, you'll be able to go. The screen you see here is very common. You've probably already seen it before. It's just describing that an implement has been detected, so they're just warning you that it is powered and can cause injury. So now we can just hit OK. If you don't have a data card in, the screen will come up pretty standard on this type of display. Just hit accept. Now if you want, you can hit the main menu button down there and you will see all of the modules appear on the left side when they start loading. Again, this could take a couple minutes per module. You can see up here we have our tractor module hooked up, which most of you might already have on there. If not, it's not a big deal. Okay, as you can see, the Intel Ag PDC icon just loaded. You can select that. It's going to bring up the main screen. Still going to take a few seconds for the rest of it to load. This initial loading time is just for the first time that this happens. Right now it's coming up with saying the row sensors are installed incorrectly because we have not configured either one of the modules. I'm going to have this system set up for 24 rows, so it's saying that it's detecting rows and nothing's assigned to it. So first button we are going to press is the cancel button to cancel out of the alarm. It's going to bring it back to the screen. It's going to finish loading. Okay, now this is your main screen right here. Nothing should be working. We don't have our modules configured, so you're going to see this. Nothing's really going to be responding to anything. It's saying our implement is raised with this little red arrow right here next to the little tractor symbol. But first, so we can get everything configured, let's go ahead and start. We're going to press Control Setup. Okay. First thing we need to do is we need to disable all 4 control channels, which are these 4 right here, because we have channel 1 set up to control the rate. These channels are used to do variable rate planning. If you have a variable rate drive out there that you want to use to control your population, you can set that up there. Or if you have a pull type sprayer that you're going to pull behind the planner, you can set that up as well and run both. But for right now, we're just going to do monitor only functions. So we need to go ahead and disable that. So to do that, we're going to select channel 1. Okay, it's going to bring up this menu. And as you can see right now, it says type and it's planner control. We need to change that to disabled. So you just select that, select disabled, and now it's disabled. Now we just need to go back to control setup. All 4 control channels are disabled. Now we can set up our materials, which are going to be the grains that we are going to be trying to monitor while we plan. So let's go ahead and change material 1 to corn. So you just select material 1. Okay. Now the name is the first thing we're going to change. So we need to select where it says material 1 and just type in corn. And then hit the enter button, which is this one right here in the corner. Okay, now this material is still set up to be controlled with the drive. So we're going to do monitor only, so we need to select type, and we need to select monitor only there. As you can see, you got all the different controls, but we're going to do monitor only. Okay, after we select that, it changes our options that we can change here. You got your target population, so let's say for corn, let's hit 32,000. Because right now it's set up for 100,000, which is 100.0. So if you actually typed in 32000, that's actually going to be quite a bit more than what you want. So let's just hit 32.0 for 32,000. Hit enter. Now you got your high pop alarm and low population alarm. That's just 20% above 32,000 and 20% below 32,000. If they get over that range, a row does, it'll come up and say if this row is planting too much or not enough. So we got this material set up for the most part. You don't really have to worry about this on-off pattern or the row fail rate here. We can take care of the row fail rate later. But for right now, I just choose not to mess with that too much because I can just get things a little more confusing. So let's go ahead and get back to control setup. Let's change another material to say soybeans. So we're going to select material 2. Again, change the name. Hit enter. Change it to monitor only. Now let's just go ahead and leave our target population at 100,000 seeds per acre. So now we can go back to control setup. Everything should be set up here. Ensure that these are still disabled. They shouldn't change, but just make sure if you didn't do that before, you change it now. Okay, now let's go back to the work screen. Alright, still nothing's working because we haven't gotten into the modules themselves to configure them. So now that we've disabled the control channel, we can actually have a button that says module config. So let's go ahead and select that so we can get our modules set up. First thing I will say on this, you will see a button, which is right here, that says auto config. Do not press that button. If you press that, it will automatically configure itself and it will not be right, and then it's very time consuming to get it back to square one to get it to work right. It'll actually lock you out of some screens until you get certain things set. So just ignore that button. Anything that says auto, just ignore it. So you got the auto sort, auto config, ignore those two. Do not press those. Otherwise, more than likely, you'll be giving us a call for some help, which is not a problem, but it's, like I said, time consuming. So first thing we're going to notice is we're going to have your master module here, which is address number 1. We need to make sure that the master module, which is WSMT, needs to be set at number 1. That module must be at number 1. And then you have your member module, and then address number 2. If you had a third, say you're going up to 48 rows, you'd have a third one, you just have that one as module number 3. So those should come preset like that. If not, just go ahead and change them just by selecting the number and entering the correct number. So now we're going to need to tell each module how many rows it needs to monitor. So you're going to go ahead and hit row assign. Okay, and right now, as I said before, we don't have any rows assigned to these modules, as you can tell. So the master module does up to 16 rows, so let's go ahead and tell it to how many numbers of rows it needs to look for, which is 16. Hit the enter button, and it just entered in rows 1 through 16. We're going to be doing a 24 row system, so right down here we need to enter in the number of rows. It's not going to be 24 here, it's actually going to be 8 because we're adding 8 more rows to the 16 previously. So we'll hit 8, then enter, and then it added 17 through 24. If you're doing a 32 row system, you add 16 in there again, and it would change it 17 through 32. Now that that's done, we can actually go back to the work screen. You might see some errors here saying that there's some rows, just like this screen here. It says row sensors installed incorrectly. Usually what causes this is an older type of sensor. We're using a very, not very old, but an older type of simulated planner box. Some of you, if you have really old sensors out there, you might get this. It's normal. Nothing to be really too concerned about. The main thing you want to look for is on your main screen right here are these bar graphs that are appearing. If you had a row that failed, it would actually just come up and say row number 1. There would not even be a bar graph there. It would just be blank. So as long as you have all these, you should be good. So right now we're still not reading anything because we don't have any speed. So that's going to be our next thing we're going to get set up. So there's a button that says speed set. Go ahead and select that. Now we need to change the source. Most people are going to want to use their GPS system for their speed. So you can go here. The GPS system is actually, the speed coming out of the GPS receiver is usually going to be can wheel. I'm not sure why they labeled it can wheel, but that's what it is. For our system, what we have, we're actually going to use can ground, which some of you might have to use that even for your GPS, depending on the model of system you have. So I'm going to go ahead and select can ground. Change my options now. Like I said, we still have this implement lift option. So if you're going to use the switch that was included in the kit, you can leave that enabled. I do not currently have one hooked up, so I'm going to go ahead and disable that. Now if that's taken care of, we can go back to the work screen. And as you can see, now our population is up. We're reading speed up here, and the little arrow that I pointed out earlier that was red and pointing up is now green, saying that the planter is in the ground. And you got your center point here, this red line going across each bar graph is your target population. It's showing you how much under each row is, or close to. You know, we're running about 95,000 seeds right now per acre. Now, if we wanted to monitor spacing, you can go ahead and change any of these options. You know, you got your high row and your low row, your highest one, your lowest one. But we're going to go ahead, since we're not using any kind of control, we're going to go ahead and change that. So to do that, you're going to press the screen config button. Okay, this is going to bring up your option to select what you want to display on your screen, what you want to monitor. Like I said, we're not using a control channel, so we're going to change that. Let's go ahead and monitor the row spacing. So you can just scroll down, you got all your different options here that you can monitor. So like I said, we're going to monitor the row spacing, which is this option right here, and I'm going to scan through all the rows so I can watch what each row is doing. So I just select that. Now if you had 16 rows only, or 8 rows, you can go down here and you can change, you'll see this lines and then columns. You can change the columns to say 8. What that means, you'll have one line and it'll only be 8 columns, so it'll spread it out evenly across the bottom of the display where the bar graphs were. And if you had 32 rows, you could go 2 lines with 16 columns each to have all 32 rows on your bar graphs. So we're going to go ahead and leave that, and we're going to go back to the work screen. So we have that set up. You now see your row spacing. Now, right now I believe we're set up in soybeans because that was the last material we used. So what we need to do is we're going to go to row monitor. Now you can select the material that you want to use. So if you have, say, wheat, corn, you can just select and you don't have to change much on your planter. You can go here and select corn, but we'll go ahead and stay at soybeans for now. And this is another thing I was talking about, the row fail rate. You can set that up here for each individual material. And what that is, it's how many seeds it needs to see per second. So if it drops below 2 seeds per second, it's going to say that a row failed. So the higher you set that, the more seeds it's going to need to see per second. Otherwise, it's going to show that a row is failing quite often. So I usually leave it at 2 seeds per second. That's a good place to leave it, because if a row completely fails, it'll let you know, or if it's starting to drop below population, it'll let you know as well. So if we wanted to change our row spacing, you go ahead and press the row IO button that I just pressed there. And here you can select your row width. So we're going to change that to 15 inches. And you can put auto update width enabled, so that way how many rows you have, 15 inches, it'll automatically change the implement lift. Since I changed the spacing, our population just doubled because I decreased it by half. So we're going to go ahead and cancel out of that. We'll actually go back to 30-inch spacing, so that way we can keep the alarms from popping up. And once you have that set, you can actually go here. If you're not sure, if you really don't care about the population for a certain row, you can actually select here, and you can just cancel that row. If you're starting to have issues with a row, you're almost done, you don't want to worry about trying to fix it, you can actually select it to ignore the row. You can do seed flow only or population. We'll leave it all on population, but there's 3 different options there for you. So if you do have a row that failed and you don't have time to go out and get a new sensor or fix the harness, you can just cancel out it. You can just tell it to ignore that row. So now that we have all that set, we can go back here and the monitor's working. Everything should be fine.